Christian parenting.
Welcome to the Living Wholehearted podcast. We are Jeff and Terra Mattson, a husband and wife team who is shrinking the integrity gap in our own lives and helping others do the same. I'm a leadership and organizational development coach, and Terra is a licensed marriage and family therapist.
We believe that if you have a following, you are a leader, and how you lead matters. Whether you are leading in the home, work, or community, we are bringing you biblical, clinical, and relational wisdom to help you in every relationship that matters most to you. None of us do this perfectly, but we are leaning into the reality of our humanity and profound wisdom of grace. So it's the holidays. Can you believe it? It's the end of the year.
How are you feeling about that?
Well, I'm ready because we've done a lot of work over the years to pace ourselves when it comes to the holidays. So I really look forward to it. But I know that's not everybody's norm. Usually the end of the year brings on a lot of extra stress, extra layers, buying gifts, budgets. We've got end of year, even for our work budgets and taxes. You've got all the extra concerts that our kids have. And
the finishing of certain activities in sports and the starting of new ones.
Yeah, and it just never seems to end. And then we throw in Thanksgiving and Christmas and Hanukkah and whatever people are celebrating. And then you've got family dynamics, the expectations. Everybody's like, are you coming to this party? Are you doing this? Why aren't you coming to this dinner? And there's just a lot.
I'm sweating now.
I know. Did I make your blood pressure go up?
Blood sugar?
Blood pressure. Blood sugar. You want some cookies? That's also the stress, the weight, right? We're all
working out. Oh, Lord.
Oh,
okay.
man. Trying to eat too much. Okay. So now that we're all stressed, we're going to talk about how to have no. How do we say no throughout the holidays? So why don't you start? When you think back, first start with what was your favorite holiday memory? Like one of the traditions that your family did that brought life to you as a kid?
Christmas is just, and Thanksgiving, wonderful times. But the things I'm thinking about in terms of Christmas, that's just a magical time of year. As a kid, I do thank my parents for making it so fun and going the extra mile to expand our imaginations as kids and tap into our imaginations and to be able to just create a sense of wonder and curiosity. They combine that, of course, with the significance of the Christmas season and the real meaning behind Christmas. So I thought and felt like as a kid that the balance was there between the real meaning of Christmas and then all this fun side of this process too, which was for us as a family. And it's one of the things that I think they did a really good job on.
Well, I remember my family didn't have a lot of resources. And so I was the kid that probably had a lot on my wish list, but I never really knew fully what I would get. But I do know that my parents always picked, on a smaller budget, they always picked one item. So there was always a surprise on Christmas morning that it was one special thing that we wanted. So I remember getting a puppy one year. I remember when we got our bicycles, there was one specific. So instead of getting 20 amazing things, I just remember I would always get. And so one of the things we've done from both keeping the spirit of Jesus at the center of Christmas, and then also maybe coming from a little of my story, was we simplified our gifts each year. So as we started buying gifts, we wanted our girls to not make Christmas all about the presents. So we moved to 3 presents. So when I think about saying no around the holidays, that's one of the no's is how do we simplify the expectations around gifts? I think our families, we draw from a hat and everybody has one person to be able to get a gift for. And we have a budget for that so that it's fun to figure out a budget.
Going crazy overspending or going into debt in Christmas. But the 3 gifts for the kids was a spiritual gift, a relational gift, and then a fun gift, right?
Yeah. And it was just like Jesus, right? To not take it overboard, but he got 3 gifts.
Yeah.
So
I remember that was part of some of the decision making. And it's never been like a disappointment. No, it's been kind of
Mm,
special and keeping it simple. And we do fun stocking stuffers and all
yeah,
that. And there's
I might go
there's a
overboard
good
on that.
amount on the Christmas tree, but our extended families, that's where they can kind of go for it.
Hmm.
And there's some fun expectation and playfulness in that between those relationships of the kids and their grandparent, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So budget wise, maybe encouraging you to think about how can we simplify and make it about what we want this to really be about, and think about your family of origin, the places
Mhm.
you grew up, and what was most important to you, like what stood out is often a cue for us of what
Mhm.
we want to be the most important for our kiddos. And if you don't have kids, you're thinking about what are the things that I want to do and is meaningful for me. Let's talk about like the schedule alone.
Yeah, I got a good question about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, how do you help couples that are out there that are, let's say, younger couples that got younger kids and they're already feeling the stress of having to do visit multiple homes
Mm,
on the same day. It's Christmas Day, and it's
right.
it's a 2 hour trip, between this set of grandparents and that set of grandparents, and
Mm,
and, and it's more exhaustion and stress building than it is fun or relaxing. Like,
right.
how can we help a couple like that be able to communicate a no, which is not in this case like a consequence or a firm boundary, but more of a turning towards people. And I think of even the ACT piece that we use, the ACT framework.
Hmm.
Is there anything there that comes to mind for you?
Oh, when you say the ACT, let's just reference that real
Yeah,
quick. ACT comes from the play therapy model, especially from Dr. Gary Landreth, but
yeah,
we use it with every no that we have to offer anyone, and we teach it to our leaders, to parents.
yeah.
But it's acknowledge, A for acknowledge an emotion. Hey, mom, I know you want us to come for Christmas Eve.
A
Um,
need.
a need,
Yeah.
a want. I'm acknowledging that emotion or that want. And
Mhm.
then C, communicate the limit. But this year is our in laws' Christmas Eve. So we're going to be over there this year and then target an alternative. But next year, you get to have us for Christmas Eve. So it's a practice of being able to say no with a yes. So you
Mhm.
are able to acknowledge the emotional want. And so to that young couple, that's a
Mhm.
really important time
Yeah.
for you. And even if you don't have kids yet, to start a rhythm, because everybody will get used to whatever patterns that you set. I think we started with the running around, and in today's culture, so many of us have multiple families due to divorces and remarriages. So instead of two families,
Yeah.
you now have maybe four
Families can
families.
get complicated.
It gets
Yeah.
really complicated, and not everyone lives near each other. And so you're flying here and you're driving here, and it can get really, really not fun actually for the whole family. And that's part of the burden and the burnout of the holidays,
Mhm.
and that emotional pressure of wanting to please everyone. So overall, it's starting with you as a couple,
Mhm.
you coming up with a game plan to say, how do we want our holidays to flow? And there's several holidays throughout the year. So learning how to trade, alternate, and maybe be able to dictate, we want to do Christmas at home,
Mhm.
but we'll come to you for Thanksgiving. You're welcome to come to us for Christmas. But starting to shape a little more of what you guys want to do as a couple, and then come up with strategies that'll work with the whole of the family. If you want to be around cousins for the holidays, you want your kids to experience grandma and grandpa, then you think around that more strategically. But the goal is to not run tired.
Yeah, and in communicating the limit, you're really communicating the why and helping people
That's
to
good.
understand why you want to have some
Mhm.
memories at home for the holidays and the importance of kids having those memories, right? And people understand this when you take time to have a
Mhm.
dialogue about this as a limit, right? Understanding the why is everything, and then targeting the alternative, the T in the ACT model is really getting flexible. Like, here's what we can do, and you and I worked really hard to try to figure out how we could communicate what we can do with our family, our extended family, and to work together to create the memories that were also important to them
Mhm.
within the limit, and it's worked out pretty good. So it means, like, sometimes again meeting up before the actual Christmas Eve day and Christmas Day. Maybe it's the weekend before where the cousins get together and we're doing a little
Yeah.
early there, but it's still the Christmas experience there on and flipping back and forth. So there's alternations going there, and it's
Yeah.
just, you're getting flexible. So
Yeah.
the ACT model has been very helpful in communicating no's, because you're actually saying yes more than no, but at the same time, you're doing it from a place of principle,
Yeah.
from a place for the right reasons.
Yeah. And I always think it's funny that we try to cram so much at the end of the year, but I'm like, there's all kinds of other fun things we can do throughout the year. You know, like you can have 4th of July, just trying to recognize that there's this nostalgic kind of everyone trying to create something in their mind. And then the reality doesn't always live up to the fantasy. Yeah. And that's why we get hooked on things like Hallmark, Hallmark movies.
Some people get hooked on things like Hallmark.
No names mentioned. Okay. But there's this idea that it's going to snow. I mean, we're going to have magical hot chocolate all the time, and the fire's going. We just have all these things that we want to create. And so
there's nothing wrong with creating those things, but holding that everybody's going to experience that, and it's going to happen all within a short period of time is the difficult, it's probably not a healthy expectation, right?
Well, the reality I was going to say before you jumped in was margin is what creates those things.
That's right.
So the part that I laugh about with Hallmark is that they've got a lot of time on their hands.
It's a movie. It's not real.
I know. That's the point, is that in reality, there's not just a lot of time that families have just sitting around. And so you have to be strategic and protect the time. And so we have intentionally and coached other couples to say, do you have time within the holidays, nights and weekends, where you can be spontaneous, where you can have the magical movie in your Christmas pajama night? Do you want to have rhythms and routines that you don't let go of? Okay. And then make sure there's space for the time where there can be spontaneity, and you can say, yeah, let's go to that Christmas party tonight, instead of booking every single night and every afternoon.
So you would say protect even time for margin and spontaneity within your own immediate family and for yourself. If you're single, protecting that for you, right? And that's a part of making the holidays more sustainable. Yeah. So being intentional about it seems like, that sounds like a lot of work. Actually, it creates freedom, does it not?
It does.
Freedom and peace.
It's the white space.
It allows us to give from what we have from a resource space rather than from a deficit space.
Perfect. I understand how much of a challenge it can be to keep our families focused on Jesus during the Christmas season. Even with the best intentions, the hustle and bustle of the season can get the best of us. It can feel like a challenge to find great resources that point kids to Jesus and not just the presents during the season. So, Christian Parenting is releasing a new Advent devotional made just for kids to help with this very thing. Jesus, the light of the world, will help kids understand how Jesus was the light that came to heal and save a hurting and broken world. Each day of Jesus, Light of the World, it includes daily scripture, a devotional to help kids develop a deep and personal relationship with Jesus, engaging activities, a prayer, and a go activity that encourages kids to take ownership of their faith in their everyday lives. This is a great tool to help you teach your children the true meaning and significance of the Christmas season. For more information and to get your copy, head over to cpgive.org. That's cpgive.org. Okay, another thing that came to mind when you asked that question that we can dialogue about is this idea of serving. So we all want to give, right? We don't always want to receive during the holidays. We want to be givers, and we want to teach that to our kids. We want to do that as especially followers of Jesus. And yet I always think of these two things. How am I doing this the rest of the year? There are higher needs, and a lot of ministries are asking for extra support. And maybe there's one thing as a family that we can do, but we don't have to do them all. And we can sprinkle this out throughout the year. It doesn't have to be just in November and December. So that kind of takes the pressure off a little bit. And then the other thing is, who has God already brought into our life that we can serve rather than having to find something. So thinking about a single person who needs an invitation to a dinner, and we just invite them into something we're already doing. Or maybe it is a family who has needs, and we've seen needs throughout the year. Or we're in a community group or our Courageous Girls group. We are already connected and we all can make meals or cookies. So we're going to have a party. We're going to make cookies, and then we're going to go drop those cookies off with some elderly families that we know. So trying to integrate, this is my efficiency meter as a higher innovator. Sure. I'm like, let's connect dots with things we're already doing instead of trying to always
create a new.
Yes. And I see families doing that. Yeah. And trying to start a lot of different things where you can say, where's there an overlap? And we can kind of utilize that. What's your thought on that?
No, I mean, I think that creates freedom as well, to be able to look at what's on the calendar, what you're already engaged in, and even put more deposits in those existing meaningful and significant activities that are there already in space. That said, I think too, if you have margin, it allows for spontaneity and to tap into some new things, especially if God's bringing something to mind that just entered your world, if you will, a certain relationship that may have just come into the focus or a need that you've heard about. It gives you a chance to pivot, but from a place of resource again, as opposed to a place of deficit.
And a place of joy and not of guilt. I think there's a lot of guilt around this time of year.
Oh, yeah.
The shoulds. I should spend time with my family. I should give presents for everyone. I should be serving the poor every night of the week. I should. And I'm curious often of like, what is it that one brings you the most joy? What are your gifts and your wiring? We talk about this throughout lots of places in our work. But how are you made? And what are the things that you're wanting to do? And then thinking about your spouse and your kids. What do you guys want to be about? You're going to disappoint people. And that's the hardest part to get over. I think every holiday I'm like, here I go. I'm getting ready to disappoint people. I have to say no thank you to that invitation to that really fun party. Or
using the ACT framework.
Usually they don't know I'm doing that, but now they all do if they're listening. So
it's loving. It's a loving framework.
But it's this idea of saying, you know what, I set that night aside as margin, and I'm going to have to say no thank you to that. Or the 5 asks that I get to do a lot of extra serving, and knowing that we already decided as a family, this is where we feel called and what we're going to be about. So shedding the guilt. We don't have to hold on to that guilt.
Something that was kind of cool that just happened the other day, actually, was with the guys in a Bible study that I'm a part of. I was trying to reached out to one of them to say, hey, I know you're kind of going through some hard things at work right now. And I want you to know that I'm here for you. If you want to talk about it, I would make it a priority. And he thanked me for that, which was great. And I gave him some specific times. And one of those times was a Friday morning. And what was neat was, I was talking about Friday afternoon, but he came back and said, would Friday morning work? I don't know if it would, because I'm remembering that you do a family breakfast. And it was cool that he remembered that it was a priority to me. And he was asking though. And so cool. When I came back and I said, unfortunately, I need to keep that commitment because that's an inner circle thing for me. But it was neat that somebody that isn't in my necessarily, first 3 circles when we talk about our priorities and concentric circles model, recognized and respected and remembered that we cool. Do family breakfast, and that's an important piece, and that impacted my availability to him. I love that. And so that's what we're shooting for, is more of those kinds of being known and seen, and that mutual respect about that. And I didn't even have to say the no. It was an open invitation, and I was able to just affirm what he already knew about me.
That's beautiful. That reminds me of what we were talking through with church staff this last week. We were talking about needs, human needs. And a lot of time, ministry leaders don't always attune to their own humanity. They're tuning into everybody else's needs, right? And so we were asking the kind of, why do leaders struggle with meeting their own needs or feeling like needs are valid? And someone said, because we celebrate when people go beyond their availability or their capacity. We give them kudos, right, way to go. But we don't always celebrate someone's no. And I went, ooh, yes, exactly. And so when you thinking about that gentleman who's saying, you know what, you might have to say no to that Friday morning because you have a boundary.
Yeah.
There was an honoring and almost an unspoken celebration, but the fact that this can be contagious, that we don't have to all run around with our heads cut off at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone gets kind of grouchy. It's weird. And the long lines and that I want to remind me to speak to the present buying and the long lines
Oh, okay.
before we go, because
Yeah.
I've learned a secret on that one. But just that idea that we're modeling when we say, no, thank you, we're going to keep that, or that's our special time, but we're excited to do this with you. That is a constant modeling to others, and it frees them up to do the same thing in their own life. They're not maybe going to come back to you and go, I'm saying no more because you said no to me. But there's just a natural ripple effect that happens. And honestly, it's what we all crave. We crave this, to be able to have time to slow down and appreciate, to reflect, to be thankful around Thanksgiving, to actually slow down and be with the people we love, and also the holidays. Or the Christmas season, to be able to appreciate who God is and what he's done for us in sending Jesus, leaving his throne, joining us as a baby, and preparing a way for us to have a relationship with God.
Something else comes to my mind that we've been thinking and talking a little bit about too, which is just reframing the way in which we look at some of our extended family situations and our family situations towards the holidays and spending time, right? Going from actually thinking about it as being vacation, because as soon as I say that word, many of you are like, it's not been a vacation. It's actually something different. To actually thinking from spending time with family, and certain relationships will come to mind, even as I'm just bringing this forward here, and seeing as an opportunity to serve. Yeah. What this does is it helps us to go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that I was expecting some things that I'm never going to get from these people or this person, if you will. And having an unhealthy expectation, even if it was a desire of your heart to have that they would be people that would be pouring into you or interested in what's going on with you. And if that hasn't been happening per se, and you letting go of those expectations can be a real freeing thing if you let them go for the right reasons. To be able to see that when you're attending these times and you're going to these spaces, that you're seeking to serve in and out of the desire that you have to want to serve like Christ served us, and there's something that happens about that. All of a sudden things become more fun because you're not expecting anything. You've taken those things off the table, and anything that happens is kind of a surprise, and it could be good. Anything that happens in a positive can be good, right? So it's just an idea that might be liberating to some of you that are feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm already dreading this and that. And
it's only like
we're just
1%.
acknowledging that some relationships feel this way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's real. We sit with lots of people. And so you're not alone if you're feeling that way. If you actually don't feel that way, be thankful. Be thankful. You have a family who does a lot of give and take. And so reframe that as like, oh, wow, I'm very rich in this area versus taking it for granted. Because the majority, I would say, struggle with the unhealthy dynamics that are happening. And then we all just get crammed together for the holidays because it's the thing to do. And there's a lot of, nobody's worked through the conflicts or the personality dysfunctions and the hurt and the pain that's happened over the years. So let me give a how-to here. When you say lower your expectations, reframe it as I'm going to go and serve instead of receive. How to do that? Here's a little tool for you if you're like, I want to take this a further step. It's the beginning of November, and you have a couple months as you're going to be preparing for family time. This is where you list out who are the people that I'm going to be seeing this holiday when it comes to family or friends. And then maybe circle the people who really give life to you, or you're just, you love being with them. And then maybe put a square or rectangle around the people who suck a little more life from you or don't always meet the expectation that you have had every year. Like you give them the benefit of the doubt and then you're like, oh, same old, same old. So put the square around those or rectangle around those people. So there's just a little more clarity, and that's going to help you be able to have a prayerful life with them and then put your boundaries in your schedule, limit the amount of time you spend with the people who are square. And when you go spend time with them, you pray up and you get prepared for this idea of, I'm going to serve like I would go serve a client of mine or someone I'm serving, at a homeless shelter, anywhere where you're going to be giving your time, not receiving and expecting from them.
Yeah.
It changes the whole experience. And watch how God uses that time in a beautiful way. And then those probes or those arrows or those lies or those, triggers will be something that you'll collect and you'll go work on for the rest of the year, because that's information for you. It's actually going to be helpful. But those expectations are what gets us in trouble. So that process of actually working your way through that. And then I would have you underline anybody who fits in maybe more of the toxic. Sometimes we're still having relationship with people that are more toxic and actually do harm. This doesn't relate to everyone, but we would put them in the red light category, and they would be someone to maybe get some counsel, some coaching, some mentorship around how do I draw boundaries this year, this Christmas around those people. Hopefully you don't have line after line of somebody who's in that category, but that is a reality for some of you.
Yeah, to stay healthy, to stay safe in many cases. And this is a prayerful process, and it's a process of wisdom and in connecting with perhaps another counselor, for example, to get some objective feedback before you make decisions. So this isn't a flippant, a gut thing. It's a process, and you want to be intentional about it. Yeah. In the, a principle that we glean from in the scriptures that help guide this process for us is in Romans, and Paul's talking about do all you can to be at peace with one another. I'm so glad that he said all you can, because that means that he knew that there were some things that you can't do. You want to do all you can, and with God, right? And with others who would be in your corner to help you sort through the highs and the lows of an emotions as it relates to these dynamics. And so you want to do all you can.
Do all you can, and the rest you have to leave to God and to that other person. And there's cost and consequences and disappointment. But recognize that first you got to do inventory. What do I want from the holidays? What makes me most excited and what I want to create for my family and the traditions we want to have? Make sure you talk to your spouse and you don't just drag them along with what you want, and there's some compromising there. And then be able to guard that and protect that. And so I think about the shopping and those lines.
Yeah,
Let's end with that.
Good job coming back to it. I was going to.
Oh my goodness. So I am doing a reframe all the time. I'm thinking, what can I do ahead of time? And so starting in October and even early November, thinking about starting a little bit on the front end and getting presents wrapped earlier. That is a part of the planning. So when you stop and you think about your holidays and you go, okay, this is going to be a crazy busy week. We've got a concert every night and a award ceremony and a business. We've got our company party and then we've got, right? So it's all crammed together. You look for another time and you say, okay, I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to go shopping, and how can I match this up? Or I'm going to do everything online and make sure it comes early. So just trying to think a little bit about writing on your calendar times to shop, times to wrap presents, time to write cards.
Spreading it out.
And add some music and add those habits with something fun.
Right. Good.
So it's a fun drink. It's a fun date with your kids or a friend. It's a fun music. Put the music on. Make sure that you're pairing some of these chores with the good that you enjoy of the holidays.
You'll do the Hallmark movie at the same time as you're preparing frozen cookies.
You know me well, honey. You know me well. Yeah, the Hallmark movie is paired with wrapping and writing cards. And that is one of the things to think about is how do you pair? That's a good system out of making good habits and reframing our neural pathways of like, I don't like this, or this is hard, or this is taking from me, and trying to pair it with something that gives to you.
Yeah, so we hope that this is encouraging to you as you think about how do I say no or even yes during the holidays, but with the good framework of having a mindset of being proactive and thinking in advance, spreading things out, meeting your needs in terms of caring for yourself, self-care in this process, so that you can actually do things from a place of
Yeah.
desire rather than obligation. That's what I think God He really wants us to live in, that space more, connected to Him and to each other out of a places of desire where we're giving out of resource rather than out of deficit. Sometimes when we feel deficit, we need to receive also, and that's part of receiving care. But for the right reasons, being able to communicate boundaries, living more in a sustainable place, and really creating order and a sense of clarity that would lead to freedom as it relates to you and your spouse if you're married, you as an individual if you're single, in relationships that are around the holidays.
Well, we do hope you have a very wonderful holiday season. And as we're ending 2023, oh my goodness, we are going to be revamping our podcast for 2024. So you'll be hearing from Jeff and I more, and we'll be sharing our vision a little bit more next month in December of what we've learned this last year and what we want to pass on and shift a little bit next year as we talk more on our podcast. We have very specific guests planned out for next year. We are so grateful that you are coming and joining with us every week and growing in your own ability to integrate your mind, your body, your heart, your soul, so that you can be a wholehearted leader, bringing integrity everywhere you lead in the home, work, and community. We're so grateful. And if you want to, get in touch with us, be a part of our cohorts, get coaching, get some professional counseling, read some of our books, go to livingwholehearted.com, where you'll learn all about all of our resources, and hopefully you'll sign up for the newsletter so we can connect with you more regularly. And until next week,
be the leader that you would follow. Yeah. This podcast is powered by Living Wholehearted, Courageous Girls, and the Christian Parenting Podcast Network. Thank you for joining us in this critical movement of shrinking our integrity gaps between what we preach and live.